Okay, so the next step in creating our hip hop track in Bandlab, now we've got our drum beat finished, we're going to try adding in a chord track on top. So let's press add track to make a new part in our project. And when we do that, it'll ask you what kind of track you'd like to make. We're going to choose an instrument track, which is going to allow us to use virtual instruments using our computer keyboard. So when you've done that, when you've created your new instrument, you should find that you're able to use, just get this up at the bottom here, you should find that you're able to use your keyboard, your piano keyboard, attached to your computer if you're in school. So playing that piano keyboard will make the sound of a piano now. If you're not in school, you can use your computer keyboard, your computer typing keyboard, to play the instrument as well by looking at the letters along the bottom here, and the letters showing you the different letters on the keyboard will play the different notes. So if I was to play the letter N, for example, on my typing keyboard, that would play this note here, which is actually an A, confusingly, in musical keyboard terms. So there we go. I can also change the octave of this, which makes it higher or lower. If I press plus to go up an octave, it's then a higher pitched note. Now, this part is going to involve playing chords. Whether you're using your piano keyboard attached to the computer or your computer keyboard, you can play a chord using this technique. A chord is always, in our case, is 3 notes. It'll be playing a note, starting here for example, miss one, play the next one, miss one, play the next one. That's a 3-note chord, or a triad we call them, and you can make chords like that on any key on the piano. So our song is going to use a pattern of chords, a repeating pattern. Now in hip hop music, they usually just use just a few chords. They usually patterns are simple and repetitive, which is a really important part of this style of music. So you don't need to come up with many chords. So an example might be 1 held chord. That can sometimes sound good. Switching between 2 chords, maybe switching between 3, or even switching between 4. But the important thing is you're making up a repeating pattern that is played in time to the track. So I'm going to play my track, press play, and just have an experiment and see with what sounds good. So I'm going to go, let's see what sounds good on top. Okay, so I've run out of a track there because my drums didn't go on for long enough. So let's just loop that a little bit more. There we go, by going to the top right hand corner and making it repeat a bit further. And I think I had an idea there, so I'm going to try recording that in there, starting with my first chord, which was this one here, which was actually the, let's put it up an octave. There we go, so this is actually an A minor chord starting on the note A. I'm ready to record that now. When you've worked it out and you've decided what you're going to do, you can press the start recording button to record your chord sequence. It'll give you a series of 4 clicks, a 1, 2, 3, 4, to count you in. Let's try it. Here we go. And I'm going to stop there. So that was a chord sequence which should work absolutely fine. Now you'll notice that mine is 4 bars long. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And it ends, so it's ready to start again at bar 5. That's a good length for a chord sequence. They should be 1 bar is fine if you want it really short. 2 bars is absolutely fine. And 4 bars is good. I wouldn't make it any longer than 4 bars necessarily unless you're really sure what you're doing. So try and stick with a 4-bar loop and make sure that that ends on the line right here. Now when you've recorded your part, when we play stuff into the computer, we are human beings, not robots, so sometimes our timing is not 100% perfect, and that's okay. Good thing about using a computer is we can actually fix it using the computer itself. So I'm going to double click on the part I've just recorded. There we go. And you'll see that some of these notes are just like a little bit wonky, a little bit out of time. That's because I did my best, but it wasn't perfect. So I'm now going to do something called quantizing. To quantize, I'm going to select all the notes. I'm going to click and drag a box around all the notes. There we go, in my part. And then you'll see this button here for quantize. I'm going to press that now. And what it will do, you'll see that it's sort of lined up all my notes really nicely with the bar lines. That's where they need to be, on those lines. So pressing quantize was able to do that. If it didn't quite work, you can always try a different quantize value. Trying 1/8 gets them even more solidly in time if they still sound a bit messy with 1/16. But 1/16 or 1/8 is good to go. Then hit quantize, then press play, and let's have a listen. In fact, before I press play, I'm going to loop it. So I'm going to go to the top right hand corner of my part here, click and drag, and now I've got this repeating chord sequence over my beat. Let's have a listen. Here we go. And there we go. Once you've finished your chords part, you can actually have a go at changing the instrument using the instrument panel again at the bottom. At the moment, this was played on a piano sound, which works quite well for this sort of track, but I could try changing that to be a different sound. Within the piano menu, there are multiple different piano sounds, like this Rhodes organ. Let's have a listen to it, which has a slightly different sound to it. I could even go out of the piano menu. You could try looking at something like a guitar, a string sound, or some of the synth keys sound if you want something that sounds a little bit more electronic-y, perhaps like this. And there's all sorts of different sounds you can play around with until you're happy with the sound of your track so far. Finally, if you've done all of that, you could try making a variation of your chord parts. Try creating a new part here, coming up with a new chord sequence using a different pattern than one you've used before. Again, record it in, quantize it, and make this new separate section of your song. Good luck making your chords for your hip hop track.